Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Namaha Pankajanabhaya Namaha Pankajamaline Namaha Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajangrahe Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanasalakaya Chakshunmittamina Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna everyone. Hope
Hare
you
Krishna.
are good.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And so we were discussing Canto 4 and till 24th chapter we discussed about the Rudra Gita, how the Prachetas are being instructed by Lord Shiva so that they can do austerity before entering to household life. And there were nearly 45 slokas, which is glorification of Lord Vishnu and Krishna in different forms and his bodily features. That's being done by Prachetas or chanted by Prachetas for 10,000 years under water in the lake. And then after that, in the meanwhile, what happened when they went for austerity? There was so Narada Muni, he came back to Prachinabarahi. Prachinabarahi is remember he's the father of this these Prachetas, the 10 sons, and he's also called as Barishad. So Narada Muni came because Prachinabarahi was actually too much engaged in doing karma kanda or sacrifices. There he used to kill so many animals for the sacrifices. And then Narada Muni came over there and they asked him, the Prachetas, that to Prachinabarahi, that why are you being so engaged in this spiritual activity and what are you going to get from it? And what are you actually trying to achieve by this many sacrifices and killing of animals? And Prachinabarahi, though he was a devotee as well, he became very humble and his with attitudes he says, those who are interested only in so-called dutiful life, namely remaining as a householder entangled by sons and a wife and searching for after wealth, think that such things are life's ultimate goal. Like, doing sacrifices and maintaining the family is the ultimate goal of life. And such people simply wander in different types of bodies throughout the material existence without finding the ultimate goal of life. And then Narada Muni, he shows a kind of, a mystic vision to Prachinabarahi. Prachinabarahi is saying that, see the illusion that you can see the all animals which actually you have killed in sacrifice, and they are all waiting with their horns and to just pierce you. Once you get your death, they will all be waiting for you only. And there, by seeing that scene, Prachinabarahi got a bit afraid. And then he says, even Shastra says that animal killing or animal sacrifice is prohibited in Kali Yuga. So even just by seeing everything, Prachinabarahi, he was actually got bewildered. And then Narada Muni narrates him a story about him only, and actually this belongs to we all us as well. And he narrated this story to make understand that Prachinabarahi, who and what he is doing, all the things. So I've tried to make it in a slide because it's a long. If we just go on reading the slokas, we won't be able to get anything of that. And by the help of our acharyas and Prabhupada, so every purport has there some, sorry, every translation or slokas has some translation or purport which explains what the meaning of the translations. So it's a kind of, you may say imaginary story, and there's a person and the king and a wife and a family that comes up, but those are being used in different terms. So that's become very difficult to understand. And even after narrating the story whole to Prachinabarahi said, that comes in 29th chapter, he says, oh Lord, you have explained me those all things, but I could not understand it. Can you please say me directly what you wanted to mean? So in 29th chapter, Narada Muni explains the whole thing again to Prachinabarahi, what he has explained in these 4 chapters, 24, 25, 26, and 27. So let me share and then we can see it, what it is. Hope you can see my screen. Yeah. Right. So this is a story, actually it represents for of everyone to us as well. And in the left side, if you see on your left, it's called Puranjana. That's a story what Narad Muni is explaining. And on the right side, I have written it like what that represents. So as of now, Prachinabarahi doesn't know what it is being, but the purport, the translations given by our acharyas and Prabhupada, it makes a sense that what these are. And he says that he starts in the story, he says, Prachinabarahi, there was actually used to be a king, and whose name is Puranjana. And that king, or that Puranjana represents actually the soul, and the soul entangled in this living body. So then he said that that person, or that king, he has a very unknown friend, and that's called as avignata, or unknown friend. And that unknown friend is super soul, what Acharya explains. And also Narada Muni explains that same in 29 chapters again. And then say that king, he has a known friend, and he started searching for a place to live. And so he wanders here and there, many places. And that wandering of the soul or the living entity is actually in many different spaces of life, and even in different planets. Sometimes the living entity does some past activities and goes to higher planet. And when he does some in-past activities or in-past karmas, he goes to hellish planet and wander in so many species, 8.4 million species, sometimes as in water, sometimes in land, sometimes as tree and flying animals and all these things. So that King Puranjana, he's actually searching a place to live. And somehow or the other, he could find a place in Bharatavarsha. So this earthly planet earlier used to call as Bharatavarsha, but now it has just squeezed into a size of now it's basically India. So where he could see that a city with 9 gates. So the king Puranjana, he was searching for a place where to live, and he found a place in Bharatavarsha, in a city that has 9 gates. What that 9 gates represents? So 9 gates represents 9 gates in our body. We have 2 eyes, mouth, 2 nose, ears, and our genitals and rectum. So these are the 9 gates, and these are the gates from where at death soul passes away from this body as well. So just try to match with the things. So Puranjana, a king searching for a place to live, he got a place where city of 9 gates, and that city of 9 gates is called as our human body. So soul has come up with an unknown friend, until he actually goes on to searching for spiritual life, he doesn't know about the super soul which lives within him. And then he actually, the soul goes from many species of life and many planets as well. And at the end, he finds a human body which has 9 gates. Right. So actually, I'm unmuting all. No, allowed to unmute you. If you have any questions in the middle, or then you can ask me. But please make sure you are muted. You are not speaking. And then in the city, he sees there are so many walls, parks, towers, canals, windows, and outlets. And what that represents? That represent our skin, our hair, the nose, head, and the windows are actually our wrinkles and depressions, and outlets is called as eyes. Right. And then there also he find a house, and the house is made of silver, iron, and gold. And what that represents for a living entity, it's just 3 modes: the mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance, how it binds us. And then also it's being said that this body has 3 things that are called kappa, pita, and vayu. So mukesh, bile, and air, and it is in our body only. And then the king saying that okay, the in the floor of the house are made of sapphire crystals, diamonds, pearls, and so many ornaments as well. And what those are our various desires and plans for sense enjoyment. Right, we make so many different plans, isn't it? And then he says that house is in the capital, and the heart is in the center. The heart is called as the capital of the whole body, where we see that the soul resides. And then you could also see there is a market beside his house, and also assembly house and flags, and that represents the mind, the location of senses, our palms, and the soul for walking. And then Puranjana, in the city, you could see so many street crossing. And what are those? Those are actually our air blowing within the body. So the air from, there are 5 kinds of air that goes here and there. That's basically made up with a street crossing. And then he could see there's an outskirt of city with very beautiful trees, creepers, lake, and very things to enjoy. And that represents a various arrangement for a sense gratification of human body. So we know we are here and we go out just for our sense enjoyment, and that represents the sense enjoyment, sense gratifications. And then in the city, he could see, so when he went out, he could see the winds as well as waterfalls. And what are those are the types of relationships which we have used to with our family, friends, relatives, and everything. And these are also called as rasas. So in general, there are 12 rasas or 12 relationships, and but mostly fives are being understood very well. So rasas, okay, if we have time, we will go to the rasas today. Otherwise, we'll do it some other day. The 5 rasas, or we can call as 5 mellows, or the relationships. Actually, all the relationships which we have, it comes within this 12 rasas. Right. Okay. Then and then in the peaceful atmosphere, he could see animals of forest, and those are actually non-violent and even not envious. And that represents a person living in a very peaceful family, where the non-envious animals represent the children who are very obedient to the parents. And it says about the peaceful family. And then King Puranjana, however, comes to contact with a beautiful woman, and that name of the woman is Puranjini. And that Puranjini is what? The Puranjini is our intelligence. So soul takes this body and comes in contact with the intelligence, and then intelligence makes the other plans, right? And then what he could see, that King Puranjana could see that the Puranjini, or the woman, is very very beautiful, and she had came with 10 servants, and each servants had so many hundreds of wives, and all are following Puranjini. And what that those represents? So Puranjani is our intelligence, and the 10 servants are our 10 senses. So five senses for knowledge acquiring, and 5 senses are working senses. And what are those hundreds wives? These are our many desires of the senses. So we have the senses, 5 senses of ears, nose, eyes, tongue, skin, and then 5 working senses, our hand, leg, genital. So, and this has many desires for enjoying these senses, right? And then the woman was actually protected by all sides of 5 hooded snake, and she's actually anxious to find a husband. So on the side of Puranjana, it's an visionary note, and on the other side, it actually represents on our own body. So what the 5 hooded snake are? Snakes, you see, they used to hiss, isn't it? Hissing sounds comes up, and that is the 5 kinds of air which is blowing in our body. And then the body is, we understood earlier that the air crosses within the body, and those are like, crossing straits. And the five kinds of air are prana, apana, vayana, shamana, udana. So inhale, outhale. So the other airs which actually within our body. And then the woman's, the is going to be a queen coming soon, and the woman's nose, teeth, forehead are all beautiful, and the intelligence thinks himself as much beautiful always, and he strives to enjoy the sense gratifications. And by seeing the king, very well established, uh, the Puranjana, Puranjana, by seeing that woman very attractive and so many followers with her, he asked so many questions to her. So who are you, and from where are you coming, and who are those bodyguards, and why are they with you, and you are so beautiful, are you from themselves, are you coming from are you Parvati, are you Lakshmi, are you Saraswati? And then he said, Puranjana, he said, however, I see that your feet is not touching to the ground. It means you are not the wives of the devatas. Normally, it's explained in the Bhagavatam in this chapter that though all the devatas, when they come into this material world in the earthly planet, they don't walk like us. So they don't touch this earth. They always remain some above on the earth, right? And that's why by seeing that, Puranjana says, I don't think you are those either Lakshmi or Parvati or Saraswati. So who are you? Please let me know. And then what that represents, and that represents that the soul in human form of life should actually put so many questions. In fact, the intelligence try to put so many questions within himself, from where I am and where I need to go, who am I. So that's basically Athato Brahma Jigyasa. We should as a human being, we should ask our intelligence that who I am, where I need to go, and what my next destination is. And by hearing the glorification, uh, uh, Puranjana, he glorified more to the lady and says that he is a king and he is attracted toward her. And that is what represents is bewilderment of conditioned soul by material nature. And then one is attracted to the beauty of material energy and eager to enjoy it. And this is because of due to ignorance. So this soul, it marries with the intelligence, or the Puranjana is getting married with Puranjini, right? And then she said, I do not my name from where I am, and even I do not know what my origin is, and even I do not know what my next destination is. That's being replied by Puranjini. And that represents to our life as a living entity is ignorant of his origin and due to lack of Krishna consciousness. So as we do not know who we are, and what super soul is, and why it is within us, and what is our relationship between Supreme Lord, and why we are here either suffering or enjoying, and what next coming to us, and why the relatives are there. So that is how uh, she said that I do not know anything. I do not know anything about my present as well as not anything about my future as well. And then the men and women are my friend. So who are the followers? They are his friend. And we discussed earlier that the 10 men are the 10 senses, and the five hooded snake is life air, and so many wives of the 10 men are the desires to enjoy this our senses. And then she said that you have a great desire to satisfy your senses, and all of my friends and I we shall try to make you happy in all respects. Hare Krishna, anyone speaking something? No. Yeah. Then then the lady said, okay, the lady, the woman, and the king, they get married and enjoyed for 100 years. And what that represents for us is basically a person, he lives for 100 years. So if you see in the 100 years of Brahma is huge, and 100 years for us in Kali Yuga is very small. It's barely we could reach there. And it's just an analogy that we live for 100 years. So in Satya Yuga, the people who were there, they used to live for uh, 1 lakh years, and then in uh, Treta it becomes 10,000 years, and then in the Dwapar it's 1,000 years, and now it's just 100 years. So in average lifespan of a human being. And then, being thus entangled in different types of mental concretion and engaged in fruitive activities, King Puranjana came completely under the control of material intelligence and was thus cheated. What does that mean? The King Puranjana was actually completely, he was surrendered to his wife or the new queen, and thence he was cheated. And what that does mean is basically when a living entity is in such bewilderment that he is under the control of his wife. Here wife represents a material intelligence, and then he had to satisfy the intelligence. So intelligence makes so many plans and the desires, and then person, the living entity, he works hard for fulfilling those desires, and then he become trapped, right? And he became trapped by not knowing that there was a friend with him that is called as avigyata, or a known friend, and I need to talk with the friend as well. He forgets everything. And then king follows the queen in all respect, as what the queen says, the king starts doing the same thing. And the mind is the place where the self is situated, and the mind is conducted by the intelligence, and hence the living entity follows the intelligence, and the soul under mental control follows the mental intelligence. So when there is no Krishna consciousness, or there is no knowledge of who am I and where I need to go and why I am here, and hence the person or the king is entrapped by the queen. In the same way, the soul is being entrapped by the plannings of intelligence, right? So this is a kind of story that narrated by Narada Muni to uh, to Prachinabarahi. And what it says, basically, he says, even in next chapter also he explains a bit more about the same, that how the king get engaged with the queen and what he does, right? So this completes one chapter, and let's go to the next chapter. And then, as he was a king, so he has a desire to go for hunting. Somehow or other he was actually uh, doing as per his request by his wife or the intelligence, but someday by cheating his wife he wanted to go for hunting. He went for a hunting in a chariot. And here Narada Muni explains a new analogy about this body as a chariot. He says that he went in a chariot, means that Puranjana, remember Puranjana is a soul, and Here, the chariot is the body. Earlier, he said Puranjana was he comes in a 9 gates of the body, and now the chariot is body here. Just try to understand the both different now. And he says the chariot has so many things within us, and that is what he got golden armor, and that is our passion to enjoy this material world. And then he says he has a very nice quiver. He has so many arrows in that, and the quiver is actually our material desire, unending material desire. And then in that quiver he had so many arrows. However, the two arrows are important. What are those? It's our false ego and possessiveness. The living entity is so much entrapped by the three modes that everything what he thinks, he says it's so just mine, just mine. It's because of me. I have worked hard, and it's all about me only, right? And the false ego, he forget that the soul is eternal. He just thinks himself as his body, not the eternal. He thinks, okay, I am this body, and I will have to enjoy this body. That's it. And then he has some more 5 special arrows, and the 5 special arrows are our working senses. And the chariot has 5 horses. And what the 5 horses are? It represents knowledge for acquiring senses. So all the I think I'll show you a picture as well next tomorrow, that the horses are there, and each horses represents one of our senses: eyes, nose, no tongue, ears, and touch or skin. And then it has 2 wheels, and it's a chariot with the 2 wheels, and the horse is actually pulling the chariot. And what the 2 wheels are? The 2 wheels are pious and impious activities a person is engaged in this material world. And the chariot has got 3 flags, and the 3 flags represents the 3 modes of material nature, right? And then the chariot has its reins, isn't it? The horse has to be controlled with the reins, and the reins is the mind. And the driver who is driving the chariot, or chariot driver, is it our intelligence. And the king went for hunting, and that hunting is basically desire of our, or enjoying our senses, and hunting for here actually is mentioned that hunting for illicit connections, that is adharma. And then by doing hunting, he actually kills so many animals due to his passion, and that is compared as act of adharma. So killing of animals is prominently said here because Prachinabarahi was used to engage himself in karma kanda, and he used to sacrifice so many animals. We, before starting this analogy also, Narada Muni showed him that whole, that the animals are actually waiting for you to come, and when you leave your body, they are waiting to you, and they will piercing with their horns and all the things. And that's why the killing of many animals is act of adharma and due to passion. So there are some scriptural definition where animal sacrifices can be done, but it's prohibited in Kali Yuga. And then after doing hunting, the Puranjana, he actually comes back to his home. And what that does mean, that by searching for so many sense gratification and all here and there, the soul comes back and starts following some activities of dharma. And he realizes that he had done so many sinful activities, and then he start doing some sacrifices. And sacrifices is done because he has now realized that I have been to hunting, and I've killed so many ignorant animals, and I need to do some atonement. And that atonement is called as doing some sacrifices. And the best atonement described here is Krishna consciousness. Because when we discussed earlier as well, when we take bath in the Ganges, the desire to do sinful activities does not goes away. It still remain there. We go and clean our sins by taking bath in either Ganges water, or when we go to Dhama, the place of pilgrimage, we clean our sins, but the desire for still doing the sinful activities doesn't goes away. It's still, the seed is still there in the heart. As soon as we come out from the taking bath of Ganges, or from uh, place of pilgrimage to back to our home, we start doing engaging in sinful activities again. However, when we do engage ourselves in Krishna consciousness, we actually approved that desire of sinful activities, or desire of sense gratification as well. And so this analogy of chariot, let's try to understand again that there is a passenger, and there is a driver, and there is the horses, and there is a reins. Just imagine that you are on the you are as a passenger, and you instruct the driver that, okay, I want to go to, let's suppose, from Glasgow to Karuna Bhavan, just for an example, sake of example, right? And however, the driver had no control over the reins. Let's suppose the reins are being cut or being loosened, and imagine that chariot has 5 horses. Do we think we will be able to go to Karuna Bhavan by the loosened reins of the horses? Definitely not, because the 5 horses will drag the chariot in 5 different directions, and it will be very, very difficult to control. That means when our senses are, loosened, when they are not in control, then the passenger or the soul, the destination of the passenger will not be able to achieve it. However, if the driver is so much expert in controlling the reins of the horses, it means the horses are being controlled by the reins, and horses are our senses, and our senses needs to be controlled by the mind. Then only the driver, who is intelligence, can take the passenger, who is actually the soul, to the right destination. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the driver to drive the chariot with loosened ropes or loosened reins for the horses. And hence, our when we need to grow or take path in our spiritual, spiritual path, we need to control our senses through mind, and mind should be controlled by intelligence, and hence intelligence will guide us towards the spiritual path, and by that the driver or the intelligence will take the soul towards the spiritual kingdom. And that will only happen when the ignorance of this material world will go away, right? So that is basically, somehow or other, we discussed a lot of time earlier, that somehow or other, if we come in contact with pure devotees, or the Vaishnavas, or the sadhus, who can actually give us a direction by which the conception of bodily relationships goes away, and we take a step ahead for self-realization, right? So by explaining these stories, Narada Muni actually, in next 2 chapters, will be actually saying the Puranjana that you are the same. Sorry, to Prachinabarahi, that you are the same person whom I am talking in this. And imagine yourself as Puranjana, and just recap those whole story what I have narrated to you. Then you will be able to understand what it is, because you are actually engaged yourself in karma kanda and doing sacrifices, and not doing for self-realizations, right? By this, there are 2 more chapters where uh, Narad Muni explains this part in more or detail, and where I think we will speak about those tomorrow. And then once he comes back from the hunting, he takes rest in his home. Means he takes rest in his home, so he comes back to the path of dharma, and he actually pacifies his wife. His wife was angry, and then he realizes that he got so many sinful activities, and he start doing atonement, or basically doing some dharmic activities, right? And then there are 2 more analogy, or kind of imaginary things even described by Narada Muni. We'll see it tomorrow. Any questions, any thoughts, or any confusion? I'm sure there might be so many confusion here because I might not have been able to explain this whole analogy properly. So please let me know. I'll try to help you out.
I think the analogy really worked proper, Prabhuji. The explanation really worked.
Okay, thank you very much. Because it's a very complex thing actually to I thought to do it verbally, but I thought it might be get difficult, so I made a slide so that you might actually can relate as well.
So this is from the shloka, right? That Narad Muni
Yes.
see, and
Yes.
we just sort of dissected it for us
Yes.
to understand, correct?
Yeah. So in slokas, so if you see this one side, Puranjana side, right? So slokas explains only about this side, one side, and the other side, the living being side, the body, passion, and mental desires, that are being explained by the acharyas, and so Srila Prabhupada noted it down in the purport. However, the same thing, as I said, uh, after all the story finished, Puranjana asks the question to Narada Muni. He says, whatever you told me, actually, I could not understand anything. So please explain me directly. I know you told me something indirectly, so please explain me directly. And the same thing, Narada Muni explains him again on chapter 29. So as of now, where we are going to slokas by slokas, you won't find that it says okay, Puranjana means the soul, and the Avagyata means super soul, and the Puranjini is intelligence. That's not being mentioned as of now. It will be mentioned in chapter 29. So whole four chapters, 26, 25, 26, 27, 28. Narada Muni explains in just in an imaginary way to make maybe other confused or make him. Sometimes there are some stories are been needed so that we know the things, and when we think ourselves in that position, we realize, okay, actually we are doing some bad things, isn't it? If you say someone, okay, a person was there, he was engaged in this and these things, and he was punished. Let's suppose, for example, you may say to a thief that, okay, there was a thief, I know, and this person, his name is XYZ, and he was engaged in stealing things. But one day he was expert, however, but one day he got caught by the cops or the police, and then he was been beaten so harshly, and he put into the jail for so many years. He has been tortured over there, and so many things over there. After saying that, when the person says, yes, yes, you are correct, and then you say that person is actually you, then he might be able to realize, okay, I am actually doing very sinful activities. So might be because of that, Narada Muni explaining a very huge explanation that how this body is get entangled in the material desires with the intelligence. He doesn't have to think about how he can actually go to spiritual world, and always being engaged in his wife means intelligence here, and how he is always engaged in enjoying the senses rather than thinking about the self-realization things. Hope that makes sense.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, if nothing more, then we are on time. 2040. Wow.
Okay.
So
thank
okay.
you.
Then. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki
Jai.
jai. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Anant Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. See you on Monday.
Yes.
Krishna.
Yeah.
See you on
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.